Welcome to Coyote Tales, a podcast featuring life stories from Weatherford College alumni and friends. And now, from the Nan and Bob Kingsley building on the campus of Weatherford College, in the Coyote Studios, here's Brent Baker.
Thank you, Dave. It is time for Coyote Tales, and I'm excited to have my friend here with us today, Jamie Bodiford Brinkley. Jamie, thank you for agreeing to do this.
Well, you're welcome. You know, I've always felt like being around a college campus just gives a excitement. It's kind of contagious, and it's kind of fun being here. And I love the construction work going on. Oh, my gosh. It's going to be even more incredible.
It's exciting. It's an exciting place to be. But, you know, really anywhere you go is exciting. You bring that enthusiasm with you for life. Anybody that knows you knows that you have an enthusiasm for life. You're Miss Weatherford.
Well, I don't know about that.
You know
I've been
that?
here a long time.
Everybody, you know so much about this community, this college, and now you're a decorated realtor. We'll talk about that in a moment with the big award you just won. But you know, you're so well connected, and you're so much about relationships. Does that fuel you? Is that something that gives you energy?
You know, it really does. It's funny. I grew up next door to a young gentleman. It was like a second father figure that was Jim Wright. And always in our neighborhood, there was something going on. And, of course, he was running for Congress when I was about 6 years old. And it was just always, things were kind of momentum. And I always enjoyed that.
So you feel like you picked up on that
from
him? And
well, I had the most incredible government teacher at Weatherford High School, and that was Vivian Davis. She brought government to life. I loved her classes. Most people go, government, history, oh, ugh. That was wonderful for me. I was never the cheerleader, the twirler, but I loved the government, was active in student government, and then went on to UTA and became an officer there. And I just loved politics when politics was fun. And now it's kind of
it's not as fun anymore, is it?
No, it's kind of sad. But I had lots of good mentors and people I looked up to, and it's just kind of a great way to grow up. And I told somebody I was licking envelopes for political campaigns before I licked lollipops because, you know, my parents were always involved in something.
All right, let's talk about the beginning. Grew up in Weatherford. Born in Weatherford?
Yes. No, actually, Mother had to go to Fort Worth to have me.
Ah, okay.
Went over to Harris Hospital, but she came back real quick.
Real quick.
A couple of days later.
All the way through school, Weatherford.
Oh, yes.
Did you go straight to Weatherford College at that point?
Actually, I graduated a semester early.
Okay.
And I wanted to go to Weatherford College just before they had all these fancy, you know, classes you can take. And I was the last class at Old Main.
Is that right?
And I had Jack Harvey for English. And it was just a wonderful, it was a kind of a different feeling going from Weatherford High School to Weatherford College. And I was the only one that was doing that semester. But everybody was so nice and didn't get involved as much with, you know, school activities. But it made a real impact and I enjoyed it.
And at that time, you know, you probably started meeting people from other areas,
yes,
you know, and expanding your worldview a little bit. And Jack Harvey, as you mentioned, is probably one of the more famous professors
yes,
in Weatherford College history. And he had a unique style, from what I hear. And everybody who took from Jack Harvey comes away with stories.
Well, and actually, even when I went on over to UTA, my English teacher, I had to take in another class, was nothing like Dr. Harvey. He was just incredible.
Wow. Now, do you have any idea how many students were at Weatherford College at that time? Just, you know, ballpark?
Gosh, I don't even know.
Yeah. It was probably very different from a size standpoint, from a, you know, being there on South Main, the gym across the street, right?
Right.
On the west side of South Main. And just a different atmosphere. But I assume you lived at home.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. Yes. And went over there. And did you make new friends at Weatherford College?
I did.
Even though you grew up in Weatherford?
I did. It was funny. Back then, to make a new friend from Mineral Wells was big because
Big
you always
deal.
stayed in your own little, you know, bailiwick. But, you know, I had some friends from Millsap and met some kids from Wise County, but it was fun. Then life went on. And then actually I was accepted at SMU. But I wanted to follow my boyfriend to UTA.
Oh.
I could have been maybe a corporate executive's wife living in Highland Park today, but I'd rather be in Weatherford. But Michael saw my acceptance. Women tend to myself keep things I shouldn't. He said, "What's that from SMU?" And I said, "That's where I was accepted, but I wanted to go to UTA, and that was good because they had an incredible professor there that was Dr. Alan Sachs, who is since given to Weatherford College."
I knew Alan Sachs.
Oh, he was a character.
Oh,
he
my
was
gosh.
wonderful. What an
a
incredible
character.
He was a great professor. You talk about stories.
Yeah, he was pretty incredible. A lot of people knew him from the media. He would be the guy that the TV
On the
stations would
elections.
call.
Yes,
and
he
get.
was kind of your go-to man.
Now, did your mother work for Jim Wright?
She did. She was a volunteer first for 2 years, and then the lady who ran the district office, her husband became a district judge, and so Pat Crowley left. And Jim says, "Jimmy, you've been doing volunteer work here for 2 years. Why don't you take over the office?" And she worked there 35 years. And then when I graduated from college, I went to work. My degree was in political science for Dale Milford. He was a weatherman who ran for Congress. You probably don't remember the name, but he won, and I worked for him for about 3 years. And then I went to work for Jim and for 5 and never missed a day of work because your mother knows you're never sick at that age.
Was it you and your mother in Jim Wright's office at the same time?
Well, there were 6 staff members, and I was the VA of Veterans Affairs. Because that was during Vietnam, and Mother, she wouldn't get home till 7, 8 o'clock at night. That's when their loved ones were dying in Vietnam, and she was setting up, getting bodies home, and it was just it was a very stressful time.
Yeah.
But I had some great memories there. I remember the day that Ross Perot Jr. went into the office and met with Jim and talked about his dream for Alliance Airport. I remember the day that Bob Bass and Sid came into the office, and they were talking about what their plans for downtown Fort Worth, because it was very blighted. It was just old, dirty old offices and what even restaurants. There were bars over by where the Worthington Hotel is. So it's fun. I saw a lot. And then because I remember going out to the opening when Ross Perot and Congressman Wright drew the dirt out of the ground like we did at Weatherford College the other day for the Alliance Airport. So
wow. So
it's fun to see how it's all
you're on the ground floor of some pretty significant things.
Remember when the engraving plant was announced? So
that was a Jim Wright thing too, as well.
There's some congressmen that go there, and I hate to say they're furniture. They don't do much.
Yeah.
But Jim Wright, whether you like him or not, Democrat or Republican, he was a statesman. He brought in the engraving plant. He helped Tom Vandegrift bring in General Motors, the Rangers, the airport.
Yeah.
I remember the story he used to tell Brent about the Dallas and Fort Worth could not get along about the airport. So Jim got them together. He was the mediator on that, if you know that. And he said, "Okay, let's put it in the middle. And then every other year, your, I guess you say commission president or chairman will be from either county." And because I remember, do you remember? Well, you're too young. You probably don't. I remember one time picking up my mother when she'd flown to Washington to ride back with Mab Wright to Washington, and she'd fly back. And because Jim didn't want, Mab and the kids to be, in the car by themselves. So 2 women would be better than one woman driving 3 crazy kids and 6 dogs. But, go to Amon Carter Airport. That was in those days. But
Amon Carter Airport.
It was Amon Carter Airport. I was just like a teenager, but and you wouldn't have the. I'm going to really date myself. I'm really not that
That's
old.
okay. Don't worry about it.
But it's been great. I mean, but Jim Wright was the force of it, and he was such a good man. But I think what I learned from him the most is to treat people well. Everybody loved him. He loved his constituents. Even when Charlie Stenholm became congressman for Parker County, Jim had me. I remember the day he called me today. He said, "Jamie, those people are from Weatherford," and he said, "Let me call Charlie." He said, "Charlie, do you mind if the Weatherford people, they still call me, can I take care of the Weatherford folks?" Sure, because he had 18 other counties to do too. But
so he's helping Weatherford people that aren't even in his district anymore.
That's right.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Talking to Jamie Bodiford Brinkley, you went from Jim Wright's office. Did you go into banking right after that? Is that when you went into banking?
No, I had another stint. Had an opportunity to work for someone I have a lot of respect for, and I think is one of the best state senators ever, and that was Bob Glasgow.
Ah, okay.
And one day I got a phone call from our wonderful Roger Grizzard, the late, great Roger Grizzard, and he says, "Jamie, my best friend's running for state senate." He said, "I need your help." And we met over at Nancy and Dave Dyson's house Bobby Joe, as they called him. If you're a good friend, you called him Bobby Joe. Came over and told us what he wanted to do, and he's running for state senate. And we all got together, and I guess we had 21 counties in the district. And then after he was elected, I went on to become his district representative.
Okay.
And we even had our office in Fort Worth, but I traveled the 21 counties. And I think that's why, it's funny how things help you as you go along in life. And I think that's why in real estate, I got to know people in Johnson County. I got to know people in Hood County and Wise County and Palapena. And I would go to their city halls and hold constituent meetings where if they had a problem with, anything state related, you just sit there and listen to problems. So,
Bob Glenn said that, he was raised by multiple aunts.
oh, yes. He was
And
such a good
so he went to church one Sunday at one church and another Sunday at another church, and he got to meet all these
You
people.
learn all that.
And it was those relationships that helped him later in life in his career. And you had a similar situation where you were placed in a position where you had to interact with people from all over the place.
I think one spring I went to 47 Chamber of Commerce dinners. And I think after going there so many, I was about ready to cluck. I ate so much chicken. That's when Ken Hance was a state senator. And, I heard the same old speeches from Jim Jackson. He worked for American Airlines. I could have given his speech. And I went to Chico and Dublin and Steve. I mean, it was fun.
Wow.
It was fun. But nobody ever wanted me to be there. They wanted the senator. And I always felt like the bridesmaid, never the bride. But I actually, one time, this is really cool. He called me one day and he said, Jamie, this is Senator Glasgow. He said, I can't go to, Grandview. He said, Forbes magazine. He was dating Elizabeth Taylor at the time. And he said, he's going to speak. Will you go and for me? And I did, and it was great. So I wanted to talk about Elizabeth Taylor and all the weight she had lost. And he sent me later her book on how she lost all of her weight.
So you're saying Forbes, Steve Forbes?
Steve Forbes' father.
He was dating Elizabeth Taylor?
Oh, yes. You don't remember that?
No, I don't.
I have the book. He autographed it. Yeah. But,
So you wanted to go and talk about
I've
Liz
had
Taylor?
I have some great experience. That's a little community that has the Seventh-day Adventist.
Okay. All right.
And great communities. So they have their little church.
Yeah.
But,
Interesting. Wow, that must have been a great experience. Was it then you went into banking after that and spent several years in banking? Was that
5
here
years.
locally?
No, it was Citizens National Bank over in Fort Worth.
Okay.
And I did SBA loans,
All
which
right.
was good because when I worked for the congressman, people who would apply for an SBA loan, that's a government-backed loan, they would call the office, or they would call, realtors would call and say, I have a VA loan. And that's when things took like 2 and 3 months to get a veteran's loan on a house. It was awful. So just solving problems.
How did you get into real estate?
Actually, the real story is it was a snowstorm coming up. I was in Hurst, Texas, sitting at a nail salon on a Saturday afternoon, and a lady was there, and I said, I've got to hurry up and get home. I'm going to be stuck in the weather. I live in Weatherford. She said, oh, I've always wanted to live in Weatherford. And I said, really? He said, what are you looking for? He said, I want da-da-da. I said, well, one of my good friends, their house is going to be on the market. And it was Jerry and Vicky's house, Durant on Bob White. So I sold her their house, and I wasn't a realtor. And I called Vicky, and that afternoon I said, I have a lady from Mansfield wants to come and see your house. She said, well, Jamie, we just listed with Jim Duncan. And I told Jim Duncan he owes me a turkey. I never even got ham for that. But they lived there for about 20 years.
Wow.
So I thought, what, that would be fun.
It's another situation where you could talk to anybody, anywhere, anytime, and that you parlayed that into a career.
I guess so.
How long have you been doing it now?
24 years.
You're one of the most respected realtors in the area. As a matter of fact, you were just inducted into a Hall of Fame. This is just happened a couple weeks ago. The Century 21 Dick Laughlin International Hall of Fame as one of the top realtors anywhere.
Well, there were two of us. Another gentleman, he was from Roswell, New Mexico, and it's really just on, not so much, well, you have to have great production, but, the values, but mostly on community service, which really meant a lot to me.
Absolutely. So you've been doing that 20-something years, but you have continued to serve in your community. You were on the city council. Talk about that, some of those positions, because you knew so much about politics on a state and national level. What made you want to get involved in local politics?
I think my mother and daddy were always involved, and I thought everybody was involved. And so I guess at the age of 27, Shirley Hall, who was a dear friend of ours and was a neighbor when I was from 2 to 5, and then we moved to Harcourt Street next door to Jim Wright. And Shirley's daughter and I were very close friends, but Shirley called me one day. She said, I need help. I'm on the school board, and these men, I need a woman. I said, well, Shirley, I don't have children. I was married then. And she said, I know, but you love children. And so I got on the school board, and I was served 9 years. And president when I was 30 because I loved it. And Raymond Curtis, oh, what a gentleman.
So Raymond Curtis was your superintendent.
Yes. Oh my gosh,
so I was
best.
wrong. You were on the school board, not the city council.
Well, I was on the city council after that.
Okay, all right.
Okay,
after that, okay.
And but I found, Brent, that a lot of people thought if I was on the city council, especially, I hate to say, a lot of realtors weren't. They go, well, I'm getting all this business. Actually, I gained too much weight because I was so stressed. Because you make 50% of the people happy, 50 not.
Yeah.
And but my big contribution, I felt, was when we got Shandor Gardens.
Yes.
And it came up for sale, and we had a wonderful city manager. His name was Larry Patterson. He had moved here from Oregon, so he didn't know where any of the dinosaurs and skeletons were buried, so he just didn't. He was just real open about everything. And I said, Larry, this fabulous garden is going to be for sale. It was 2 weeks after 9/11. And he said, well, you know what? We might could do it with a hotel motel tax. So thank goodness Joe Tyson was mayor at the time. Got Joe over there. It was the night, 2 days after 9/11. He and Patsy came over to the garden. Melody let me have it for 1 week. She went to Natchez, Mississippi.
Melody Bradford.
Yes. And she says, Jamie, I said, oh, Melody, I've always wanted to spend the night here. And she said, well, you can have a house. So I house sat for her, and I had people. I brought people in and people out, and took Mrs. Doss over there, and, Fred and everybody from the Presbyterian Church. I said, y'all, we got to save it, because I remember as a child hearing my parents talk that the city council had a chance to have it twice. She was going to give it to them for a life estate, and they turned it down.
Wow.
So I just knew somebody from Dallas was going to buy it, and I'd never see it again.
Well, you're known in this community as the person who saved Shandor Gardens.
Well,
you really
a lot
are.
of us did, but I love the gardens, and I'm real excited about it. I'm very proud of that.
And if you're listening to this and you're not familiar, and you might be listening from somewhere outside, even the state of Texas, just because you care about Weatherford College, do yourself a favor, and the next time you're anywhere near here, go visit Shandor Gardens. And you're still involved with through the Shandor Gardens Foundation.
Well, I've been on it 20 years, and Shandor Gardens, we're now one of only 4 national historic landmarks in Parker County. We have the courthouse, we have the cabin over by Tyson School, the wonderful truss bridge that's about to be torn down was a national marker, in Shandor Gardens. It is a treasure, and Douglas Shandor, who married a Weatherford girl, who painted the portraits of Queen Elizabeth, Duke and Duchess of Windsor, President Roosevelt, President Hoover, Winston Churchill, Stalin, Lenin, one of the greatest portrait painters they call him in America. And if you go to the National Gallery of Art, you'll see most of his things. But we have 8 of his paintings at Shandor Gardens. And thank you to the city of Weatherford that we have that beautiful
well,
place.
Thanks to you as well, and everybody was a part of that. And you know what? You have really stayed connected with Weatherford College. You're a member of the foundation board. You are a very consistent scholarship donor. You're a member of the Patrons of the Arts.
Oh, that's our new program. I'm so excited about
Fine
that.
Arts. You headed up the host home program for the Weatherford College International Piano Competition. Tell me about your staying so connected with Weatherford College. Why do you do that?
Well, I think it's just a pride I feel, and it's interesting because having gone to other towns, I've been at Ranger Junior College and different colleges. My nephew played football, and so it's just amazing. We have something unique. And Michael said it best when we first were dating. He said, do the people of Weatherford know and realize the economic impact as well as the cultural impact that Weatherford College has on this community? I think there's 2 things that if they ever took away the courthouse or Weatherford College, our community would not be the same, because that's our identity. And I think now that Weatherford College, under the leadership of Dr. Farmer and Brent Baker and other deans, it is so exciting and so engaging. It's not just sitting still, it's making it happen. And I was at an event not too long ago, and I was telling about our Grammy Award winners, 31 of those, and 51 boys that have gone to the National Baseball League. And they said, are you in business development for Weatherford College? I said, yes, I am. I said, we all are. But it's great. And
you're an ambassador for Weatherford College.
I love that. Except I'm not those little young, cute ones. Was years ago, but not now. Okay, but I love just the things that y'all do in the community, the taste of Parker County. And people don't realize going to the baseball games. I tell that when I'm showing houses. I drive by here. I said, if you have little children, you could get a little box and they can just slide down the hill and they can eat popcorn at a cheap price. And sometimes the banks give you free hot dogs, don't they?
Yeah, that's
and,
right.
there's so many things to do. I think, Brent, you love my story when I got pulled over on Eureka Street and I told the policewoman that she said, "Why are you driving so fast?" I said, "I just love this fabulous Christmas concert." But I think we need to, and I want to help Dr. Rebecca James, or soon to be Dr. Rebecca James.
Yeah.
Rebecca, who's head of our fine arts. We've just got to make a better connection. And maybe some of I'm going to put you on the spot. Maybe people could call into the radio station and give their email address if they want to be put on the fine arts, or if we just put them on the newsletter or on that email of what's happening at Weatherford College.
Yep. More eyeballs and more ears to hear all the great things they're doing down there. You bet. Yeah.
Well, one good thing, I remember what Raul Navarez, you remember when?
I do.
Oh my gosh, when we were inducting our wonderful county attorney.
John Forrest.
Oh my gosh. He helped us save Jim Wright House. He led that. Well, Raul got up at his speech. He said, golly, he said, "John, this place is fabulous. I never have been here." Here he was, an attorney on the square, 20 years, and he was not aware. But I think what y'all have done with the technology building is bringing the community there with chamber events and different others, that people are seeing what's really happening on this campus. And they're excited. You are in the happening place. You know that?
We really are. I mean, it's amazing, and it's because of people like you, and just enthusiasm just drips off of you, and anything you're passionate about. And one thing, when I got to go to your house a couple weekends ago, when you opened it up for the host homes for the piano competition, your house is like it's almost like a museum, but it's much nicer than a typical museum.
I don't charge either.
That's right. Of just Weatherford, Parker County history. I know you're very passionate. You're also on the Historical Commission, is that right? And you were part of, was it the Jim Wright home that was just recently converted? You were part of that, getting that converted into something for the Historical Commission.
Well, actually, had it on the market, and John Forrest came over there one day in one of my open houses and said, "Jamie, this should be a museum." Everybody was saying, they said, why is the city selling it? And I said, well, they just can't use it. And John said, "I have an idea," and he took it forward. They traded land. There was no money involved. The city traded the county some land, and I'm really excited about that. But my kitchen's full of Mary Martin stuff, and someday I'll will that to your beautiful wife, because she's going to keep Mary Martin on.
She will flip out when she hears this. Yeah, talk about your Mary Martin connection. You were in either her daughter's or her home in New York or California or somewhere. Where did that happen?
Well, actually, I've been in Mary's presence 2 or 3 times when we had a big fundraiser when we were raising money in 1975 for the library. And Ann Bergman, wonderful lady of Weatherford, she was a classmate of Larry Hagman, and Ann said, "Let's have a big party." And we did it at Risley Country Club. And back then it was $100, and that's a lot of money now.
A lot of money, yeah.
A lot of money then, too. And we had about 400 people, and we raised seed money to give to the city to start the public library. They were using the old gymnasium at Weatherford College as the library back then, across the street.
As the public library?
You had to go up the steps. If you didn't kill yourself going down, you got a book.
So you were a part of that as well.
Well, my mother said, "You're going to get involved. If you're going to be a housewife and a citizen Weatherford, you're getting involved." And so we did that. We started the spring tour, and I was a charter member of the Parker County Heritage Society, and we got that involved when we heard that they tore down Old Main.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when people, what do we do? Well, let's start the Heritage Society. But I just think with Mary's daughter, Heller was there at the fundraiser, and she signed a Life magazine. Mary was on over 8 or 9 Life and Look magazines in her career.
If you're not familiar, Mary Martin was the most famous Broadway star going, 50s and 60s. She was from Weatherford, Texas, and she was a star.
Well, and they wrote, was it Jay Lerner who wrote South Pacific
for her? Yeah.
For her, South Pacific, Hello Dolly. I mean, everything was Mary.
You were telling a story the other day.
Sound of Music.
You were telling a story the other day where you were somewhere. I think it was Heller's house.
It was Heller's home,
and there were all the talk about all these things from all the shows she was in.
Well, have you ever had somebody ever say, "Hey, Brent, why don't you and Elizabeth come and see us and they say it and you go, do they really mean
Like
it?
out of town somewhere. Yeah.
And so
Sure.
we were having a Century 21 conference in Washington, D.C., and I called Heller and I said, hello, this is Jamie. Oh, hi. And bubbly voice like her mama. And she said, you told me to come by and see you sometime. I'm going to be in D.C. in about 2 weeks. Can we come by Chesterfield? She lived on the Potomac, not too far from Annapolis. And she said, oh, no, I'll have to polish the silver. I said, oh, no. We're going to take you and Martin out for dinner. No, but you have to come to my house because you love my mother and you've got to see my home because I inherited a lot of her beautiful things. So we went to the house, and what she was referring to, Brent, she had all these beautiful silver boxes, like about 12 to 15 scattered around her decor.
Silver boxes.
They were like, I think they were held cigarettes in the past. I don't know. There was just a little.
That would make sense.
A decor piece.
Yes.
And it had her name of her production, like The Sound of Music, and it had all the different actors in it with their own signatures, and they engraved the signatures of these people
into the silver on the box.
They're incredible.
Wow.
I'm hoping Lorraine Crutcher and I at the Dolls, we're hoping we can get one for the Dolls because it is incredible.
Wow.
So many of Mary's things were sold at auction. So every now and then I get on eBay and buy another magazine or a book or whatever, and you find all these little treasures of Weatherford.
They're all over your house, and you've donated them to other things. You donated a crystal
Well, when you don't have
vase
children or grandchildren, you can splurge in all these little niceties. But
Now,
anyway.
what was the story you told me the other day about there was a famous actor?
Yul Brynner.
Okay, you are famous for making you brought me these pies. You brought me some pecan pies, which I love. You make these wonderful pies.
Oh, it's Mary Martin's recipe.
And it's Mary Martin's recipe, and you have a little card that's it's
in there.
It's a reproduction of Mary's handwriting with the recipe. Yeah. But tell the story about the famous actor Yul Brynner ending up in Weatherford one day.
Well, Mary and Miss Edith Jordan of Jordan's Restaurant. There was a beautiful restaurant at the I don't know, used to be the Rockhound Museum. And anyway, my father had a car dealership across the street by Regal Glass. But anyway, Mary asked Edith, she said, all my friends drive through Weatherford because Weatherford before the interstate was the old Bankhead 180 highway. So people do a cross-country trip and they go through Weatherford. She said, if you ever go to Weatherford, you got to go to my house, my home place, and go to Edith's and get a pie. So Yul Brynner, Jimmy Stewart, Bing Crosby, Carol Channing. Miss Edith told me the story of Zsa Zsa Gabor going in there in the winter and pulling her ermine coat down the aisle of the restaurant. I mean, they were everywhere. Chauffeurs would sit out there waiting in their
at this
limousine.
Restaurant.
Yes, in Weatherford. And my daddy would tell the story because he was across the street and he'd go over there and drink coffee and he'd see all these notable people. Jimmy Stewart actually banked at First National Bank with Michael's dad. He had land here. Roy Rogers and Dale Evans.
Wait a minute. Jimmy Stewart had land in Weatherford? Oh, wow. Okay. All right.
And Jack Borden told me that, so it has to be true.
Has to be true, yeah.
But so everybody would get a free pie from Mary by way of Edith, and about every 2 or 3 months, Edith would send Mary a little note that you owe me for 6 pies or whatever. But this is Mary's handwriting, and how I got it. There was a guy out of Fort Worth who published a celebrity cookbook, and he had different politicians and notables. And Mary, I copied it and went to Hartnett's, and I got so tired of writing on the back of it from people who didn't know who Mary Martin was, which is a lot of people. That's why we got to keep her reputation alive.
Yeah.
I now had Lori Hartness to go back, and we now put all her accolades on the back of that little
That's
card.
a smart thing.
Because I got tired of writing about
That's a smart. There's a lot of accolades to write there. We're talking to Jamie Bodiford Brinkley. Now, when I first met her, she was Jamie Bodiford. And I remember Jamie and Jimmy Bodiford. As a matter of fact, Jamie, the first time I met you was when you and Jimmy put together a fundraiser for the Weatherford College Foundation when I was a young pup, just starting to work there. And I met the two of y'all. And then later, all of a sudden, your last name is Brinkley. Tell me about meeting Michael.
Well, I met Michael at Shandor Gardens.
Imagine that.
And it was a political fundraiser. Imagine that. And it was for his cousin. And he saw my name tag. He said, Bodiford, that's a good name. And I said, Brinkley, is your daddy Charlie Brinkley? Yeah. I said, I know your daddy. And one thing led to another, and we got married there.
Wow.
And his parents used to go, they met at Weatherford College.
Sure
That's
did.
why Michael's so indebted to Weatherford College, because if they hadn't met, he wouldn't be around. And they met at Weatherford College. And during
Charles and Polly Brinkley.
Yes. And they used to go down to Shandor Gardens for a free date. and Mr. Shandor would let them watch the students watch him paint.
You're kidding
Portraits.
me.
No. They didn't have any money because during the war there was no gas money, and they didn't have cars anyway. So they'd walk down to Lee Street and watch him paint, and he was very gracious.
Wow, that's fantastic. And y'all been married how long now?
20 years this year.
Congratulations.
We're going to go on a special cruise because of 20 years of marriage.
Yeah, with President Farmer,
Yes,
I understand.
And we hope that other people are going to be doing that in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
And we're going to do lots of fun things.
Travel
here.
with the president.
Why not?
It's a great program.
I'd rather
And
be with him.
there you go. Well, I just want to thank you for who you are, not just for the things you do, but who you are, Jamie. You're a breath of fresh air. You're always in a good mood. You're always energetic. And is there anything we haven't talked about today that you want to talk about regarding your background, your life?
Well, I want to do something that Jack Borden did.
Okay.
Jack Borden, I've always loved him. When I was a little girl, I'd go to the rodeo. He was the one that had a cigar in his mouth. Never smoked it, but it just kind of hung in his mouth. And Jack would always, when you'd go through the rodeo, through the grand entry, if you put your little hands out, he'd touch our hands.
Yeah.
I remember that. He was so precious. And we lived across the street from him. I loved him so much that after Edith died, I'd go over there every Sunday night, and he'd tell me stories. And then later we had a little radio show.
I
And
remember
I learned
that.
so much history from Jack. But Jack would tell the story of how important it was to give. And I think of Jack and IB and the Carter family that gave that land to Weatherford College. And I think of all the found really scholarships before we had a director of development like you, people that he would say, you know what, if you want a legacy, give to others. And he was so gracious about it. And if they were going to write the will, he said, well, what about Weatherford College? Is it in there anywhere? And he never forgot us. And so I feel like when we're doing these things for Weatherford College, we're doing it for Jack and IB and, his wife, Edith, she taught here at Weatherford College.
I didn't even know that.
You didn't know that?
I did not.
Well, let me give you another piece of information.
Okay, bring it.
Miss Edith Jordan, and I've seen her, very pretty lady, and they never had children. And
Edith Jordan or Edith Borden?
her name was Edith Jordan Borden.
Okay.
And then there was Edith Jordan, who had the restaurant.
Okay.
But
We're talking about Edith Jordan Borden.
Yes.
Okay.
And they lived across the street, and that's John Westhoff's, uncle. But Jack was the most wonderful man, and I don't know if you knew that he never graduated from high school. He said it was during the the Depression.
Yeah.
And his dad and his brothers had to go to Arizona to make some money. And he said if it hadn't been for Weatherford College, he got to go back to Weatherford College because he couldn't go back to high school. He was too old. It was 2 years later. Weatherford College let him in. He went to UT. He became an FBI agent. He was a district attorney in Weatherford. He was our mayor in the 60s. Because of Santa Fe Drive is Jack Borden. That was under his leadership.
That's true.
Yeah. But,
Wow. And you said you want to be like Jack Borden. In
well,
other
I could
words,
never be like Jack Borden, but I remember what he told me. But Miss Edith was the first woman in Parker County who got a law degree. And you know how she got a law degree? She did not go to UT to law school. She studied his books. Very smart lady. She was a professor at Weatherford College, and she decided to become a lawyer. And she studied and went in his law library, and they don't do that anymore, but she went to, she got her law degree.
So basically, she passed the bar through just reading his books.
And she had been a professor
and
at Weatherford
probably
College.
picking his brain as well. But that's unbelievable. Jamie Bodiford Brinkley, you're a force to be reckoned with in a very positive
Well, you're
way.
sweet.
And we just thank you just for who you are and for doing this, for taking the time. And I want to thank you for that pecan pie.
Oh, you're going to get a bigger one soon.
Jamie, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
That's our visit with Jamie Bodiford Brinkley on Coyote Tales on 88.5 and 102.5, The Coyote.